Silent Hill 3, a game loved by every woman, misunderstood by every man. Have you ever wanted to know what it's all about but then realized that it's a direct sequel to the first title which is almost impossible to play? Or are you one of those who don't like to play as a girl? Well, either way, don't worry, because in this video I will explain it as fast as possible. So, let's start. In Silent Hill 3, we will play as Heather Mason, your classic American 17-year-old girl who arrives at an amusement park that looks not that parky nor amusing. And since the exit from where she came from is locked, she doesn't have any other option other than to go deep inside the park, which takes her to a roller coaster that doesn't seem to work. So she goes through the tracks to see where they end. Thank God it was only a dream. Or nightmare? And after she tugs a pendant that her father gave to her, she goes to the phone booth to call him, although someone is following. They have a little chit-chat, she laughs, she tells him that she's going back home and that she loves him, but while hanging up, she realizes that a man is looking at her. So she's like, "What's up?" And the man is like... So of course, Heather tries to go, but the man, who turns out to be a detective named Douglas, stops her and tells her that someone wants to meet her. Heather obviously tries to get away, but Douglas seems invested in making her listen to him. So she goes inside the women's restroom, where after coming across a weird symbol painted in the mirror which reminds her of something and bothering someone who is inside one of the stalls, Heather tries to look for another way out of the mall, which takes her to another zone where she finds nothing but closed doors except for one, so she enters it. However, she doesn't only come across a gun on the floor, but also an indescribable creature that takes its attention off the corpse it was eating and starts going towards Heather. So, after killing more creatures, coming across the same symbol of the restroom that reminds her of an altar, and finding some bread, Heather reaches another part of the mall, where she comes face to face with a peculiar woman named Konami, who tells her that the monsters have come to witness the beginning, the rebirth of paradise, despoiled by mankind, and that her power is needed, and that she should remember her and her true self, and that she is the one who will lead them to paradise with blood-stained hands, and that the responsible of all what's happening there is none other than the hand of God. The point is that after Claudia spouts all of this nonsense to Heather, she starts having a headache, and Claudia leaves with a smile on her face. Alone again, Heather goes down an elevator which takes her to the wrong floor, which is filled with even more creatures. So... After coming across the symbol again, making fun of the disgusting pig James Sunderland is...
Who would even think of doing something so disgusting?
Hearing the voice of Cheryl coming from a TV screen calling for her daddy, and seeing a barbecued dog, which, I'ma be honest, looks tasty as heck, Heather reaches a room that has a big hole, and since there's nowhere else to go...
What a thrill.
However, once she reaches the floor, she starts hearing something coming. Something big. Something monstrous. Heather obviously comes out victorious, and the place turns back to normal, and since she just wants to get home, she heads to the subway, which is inside the mall. But she's intercepted by Douglas, who is like, "What's going on?" And they talk for a little bit about how Douglas was hired by Claudia to find her, and how she senses that all of the events that have just transpired have something to do with her. Heather then leaves Douglas and goes down to the subway, which seems to be empty, so she starts exploring the place. And after coming across a newspaper that talks about how a man died when he jumped off a platform, finding an occult magazine that talks about how the souls of people sometimes haunt places when they die by suicide or accident, and how they can possess humans and make them suffer the same fate as them, getting pushed by something and almost dying, coming across a dead hobo, and finding a shotgun wrapped as a gift inside a train cabin, Heather is finally able to enter a functioning train. She then reaches what seems to be an underpass, which is weird, but even weirder is the fact that the train didn't have a driver. Here, Heather comes across a lot of stuff which isn't really important, although there's this one little thing. A note. A note that everyone should be aware about. A note that talks about how a monster killed two great people, two great workers, two incredible souls. Rest in peace, Jose Jaime. Gone, but not forgotten. After killing the monster by using a hairdryer because woman, I guess, Heather finds some stairs that take her to a construction site, which is looking really nice. Great use of space, great structure, great site to bury a human body. And this takes her to an office building that at first seems normal given the circumstances. Yeah, there are monsters roaming around and a mannequin starts bleeding from the neck, but overall, the place seems less nightmarish. But this doesn't last too long, because Heather, after going down an elevator the old way, and finding the symbol yet again, for some reason tries to see if a bathtub that seems ready for display has running water, which, of course, it doesn't. Because it has blood. And I guess the fear of blood tends to create fear for the flesh. Because once Heather sees the blood pouring in, the place starts transforming into a rusting, flesh-filled hell. Not too dissimilar to the one from the mall. And she also has a headache. Heather then wakes up after hearing Harry Mason and realizes that the place has changed again, which makes her mad. She begins exploring until she reaches a room where she finds a note with a weird message and a picture of her. And here she also comes face to face with a man who seems normal, I guess, and whose name is He seems to know about her and also Claudia, so they have a little talk about how he's on her side and not hers, how Claudia is like that because someone brainwashed her, and that someone turns out to be Heather's mother. But even more surprising is the fact that Harry is her father. Yeah, that Harry. Which means that this is her, and Dahlia is the one responsible for Claudia. Sadly, this conversation doesn't last too long, because Vincent has the great idea of bad-mouthing Harry. Which, how dare you? This guy is sacred. At least Heather realizes that the guy is as crazy as Claudia, because even though he knows how to stop whatever is going on, he won't tell her since he's enjoying it too much. So she leaves and goes to the first floor to exit that place. But of course, something is blocking the path. At least she finds a fairy tale book that talks about a monster that was living at the gates of some village and how the king was looking for a way to get rid of it, which made him summon the village priestess, who was very kind and very good. Yep, well, and that didn't help. Or did it? Because after Heather comes across a mirror wall that has a wheelchair on the other side and a painting that she remembers somehow even though she has never seen it, she is able to find the two other parts of the fairy tale. And with this, she finally discovers the way the priestess was able to get rid of the monster. So she tries that too.
Tu fui ego eris.
And it works. So Heather exits the place and heads to her apartment. Sadly, this isn't where this story ends, because Harry, her dad, the greatest man of the world, the greatest character in the whole series, and I will fight whoever says the contrary, is dead. Obviously, she breaks down for a bit until she realizes that there's blood spots leading to the roof. So, armed with anger and hatred, Heather goes to deal with whoever killed her daddy. And wouldn't you know it? It was Claudia! But hey, at least she has a good reason, or well, two good reasons on why she did it. The first is that she wanted revenge for what Harry did 17 years ago. You know, the stopping of the God's birth thing. And the second and most important one is that she did it to make Heather get filled with hatred. Because that's what it's needed for her to birth God and build an eternal bond. These aren't very good reasons for Heather, so she aims at her and is ready to shoot. Until Claudia tells her that she was just giving orders. The one responsible for the murder is him. Oh, and that she will be waiting where all begins, in the town of Silent Hill. Heather, after defeating the son of a bitch that killed her father, goes back to her apartment where Douglas is, and says if it wasn't for him, none of that would have happened. Heather starts screaming. She comes down, and after he helps her move the body so it doesn't look as gnarly, and they mourn it for a bit, Heather tells him her next move: to go to Silent Hill and kill Claudia. Douglas tries to convince her not to do so because revenge is bad. But obviously, that doesn't work. So he offers to take her there and waits for her outside. And hey, at least they won't be arriving to Silent Hill without a plan. Because while leaving, Douglas tells Heather that a man named Vincent told him to look for a guy named Leonard. Oh, and he also gives her a notebook her father was holding, which basically explains all the events of Silent Hill 1, although it has some very interesting and very new information. Because turns out that Cheryl was the one who pleaded to be taken to Silent Hill. They then have a little conversation where Heather summarizes the whole text, and after a while, they are able to reach Silent Hill. Here, Douglas explains the plan, which goes something like this. He is going to go to Leonard's house to see if he can find him, while Heather checks out the hospital. So Douglas goes away, and after having a little detour to see Heaven's Night, where she finds the same brochure James found on the apartments, Heather reaches the hospital and starts looking around. Luckily, she is able to find the medical records of Leonard almost instantly, and according to this, he's inside one of the hospital rooms, although the floor to it seems to be inaccessible. And there are monsters there. During this journey, Heather comes across a lot of interesting stuff, like a machine gun, more wheelchairs, a gossip magazine that talks about some kind of orphanage that is used to indoctrinate children into a local cult known only as the Order. Okay, well, maybe this one isn't that interesting. And also some journals from a man named Stanley Coleman, whose medical records were also where Heather found Leonard's. And well, let's just say he's a very creepy dude and makes Heather uncomfortable from the start, because he seems to be obsessed with her, even though he just met her. But thanks to him, Heather is able to reach Leonard's room. So I guess he's a nice guy? See, ladies? You should definitely give nice guys a chance. No, you shouldn't. Here, Heather gets a call from Leonard, who at first confuses her with Claudia and basically calls her a fool and her ideas stupid, until Heather explains that she is not her. So they have a little conversation about how he's Leonard Wolf, Claudia is his daughter, how he can sense Heather's hatred for her, and how he needs her help to get out and stop her daughter from doing whatever she's planning on doing with a seal he has. Because of this, she ends up inside a weird hallway that doesn't seem to end, until she reaches a symbol that looks very similar to the one Harry saw Alessa doing all over Silent Hill, which makes her remember at least a garland and also opens another path. A path that has a smiling poster, the creature turning a ball, and a hanging gigantic nurse. Thanks to this, she is able to return to the hospital, but something seems different. And there's a lot of peculiar stuff around, like a woman's hand hanging from outside, a corpse hanging upside down dripping blood into a bucket, a room that does something to Heather, even more indescribable things, and why not, a functioning phone inside a lock, where Heather actually gets a phone call from someone who wishes her a happy 31st birthday. Wait a minute, isn't Heather 17? I know, if you thought this was Leonard or Stanley, he is not. He's someone else, someone unknown. Oh, and Heather also finds a notebook with drawings and writings from some lunatic that thinks that he's a Knight of Honor, the protector of the seal, a fighter for God. And another one warning the hospital staff from a patient located in the same room Leonard was supposed to be, because he's a freaking religious zealot that keeps pushing his faith to others, and that if tempted, might become hostile to the point of violence. Heather, then, after exploring for a bit, enters a room where she finds a book called Lost Memories, which talks about how there are two types of ritual sacrifices, where one has someone stabbing themselves and drenching an altar with blood, and another one that has someone getting burned. Cultist stuff, you know. But here is also an altar that seems ready for a ritual, although there's one little thing missing. And by using the blood from the bucket to drench it, a hole appears and takes Heather to the sewers, where she finds Leonard. who is eager to get out of there and stop Claudia before she accomplishes her stupid plan. And you know why he thinks her plan is stupid? Well, because only believers should enter the paradise of God. The bringing of a god of hatred part is fine though. Because of this, Heather realizes that he is even worse and more unhinged than Claudia, who at least wants to save everyone. So she doesn't have any other option than to end with him.
Death to all who turn their backs on God!
Heather then wakes up inside the normal hospital again, and oh my God! And with this, she heads back to the motel.
Oh my God, Vincent, why did you send her to my daddy?
Shut up. He was mean to you. You hated him.
You will go to hell, Vincent.
But not yet.
But when she reaches it, instead of Douglas, Heather finds Vincent, who tells her that Douglas told him to tell her that he was heading to the church where Claudia is supposed to be. But the only way to get there is through the amusement park. And when she arrives here, her tummy starts hurting to the point of making the place turn into a nightmare. Although there's one difference between this and the one she woke up from, since here she is actually able to find a key for the roller coaster's control room, and thanks to this, she is able to turn it off. Don't mind the corpse hanging from the ceiling, that doesn't matter. Now she can finally get them.
What do you want?
You lied to me. She wasn't kidnapped. She was happy.
No, she wasn't. She was brainwashed, and she has God inside her.
Shut up, lady. I'm going to kill you.
Heather then wakes up, and after entering a haunted mansion that has very questionable attractions for kids, like real blood, a real corpse, and a spike trap that drops from the ceiling, and a literal red mist that drains the life out of the person, she is able to reach Douglas, who seems not that good. They talk for a bit about how his leg is broken, how he's used to it, how he doesn't want to let a god that comes from a place like the one they are in come to life, how he has, or well, had a son that was killed while robbing a bank, how Heather reminds him of him, and how, since Harry Mason, great man, greatest dad, isn't alive anymore, only she can stop Claudia. So she continues ahead, although before she leaves, Douglas aims at her and starts wondering if maybe killing her will be the best option. You know, because Heather is in theory Alessa and she has God inside her. But he doesn't. Heather then, after finding Douglas's notebook, which just talks about how Claudia hired him to find Alessa Gillespie, who was kidnapped by Harry Mason, comes across a notepad. But this is not just any notepad. Because remember the ones Harry used just in case someone ended up in the same situation as him? Well, this is one of them. Which means that that's the same place Harry went through. And oh my God! It's the same carousel! Although there's only horses here. So thanks to this, the place starts turning even weirder, and the worst part is that Heather isn't alone anymore. Well, kind of, because out of nowhere, what looks to be like an evil version of her appears and challenges her to a duel. Heather obviously defeats Heather, which makes the carousel stop, and a text coming from Alessa appears on the floor, which talks about how she would rather die instead of bringing the so-called God into the world. She then continues through a path where she starts coming across what seems to be a prayer to some god until she reaches a door that has another text that explains that that door is the gate that leads to the road of paradise, and that whoever crosses it should embrace the bosom of the Holy Mother. Say no more. But there's no bosom, only Claudia, who seems surprised but thankful that Heather is there, although Heather isn't as happy and is ready to shoot her. Claudia then starts telling her that the time is not yet and Heather, of course, just wants to kill her, but starts pretending to be Alessa to see if she can convince Claudia of not doing whatever she's going to do. This doesn't really work because she becomes too emotional and hateful, so before she's able to kill her, Heather starts writhing in pain, because God keeps growing. Claudia then leaves, and Heather, alone again, starts exploring the place, and thanks to some paintings, she learns some of the church's beliefs, which goes something like this. In the beginning, People were filled with nothing but hatred. Although they fought, death never came. But then a man offered up a serpent to the sun, while a woman offered a reed. And thanks to this, God was born. And God was good. Day and night, joy, mortality. All of these exist because of God. God then created beings to lead people in obedience. The red god, Suchilbara, the yellow god, Loselbeth, and also angels. Finally, God was going to create paradise. However, God collapsed and the people grieved. Yet, God promised to come back and finish the job. During this exploration, Heather also finds a confessional where a woman seems to be repenting for avenging her daughter by killing a girl, and Heather can either forgive her or not. And even though she's in a church, there seems to be something wrong, because while she goes deeper and deeper, the place starts looking like an amalgamation of multiple locations, with blood, flesh, and rusted metals everywhere. After finding a cassette tape, a text that explains that the symbol she has been coming across symbolizes a religious group and that the outer circles represent charity and resurrection while the inner ones represent present, past, and future, and a picture titled Saint Alessa, Mother of God, Daughter of God, which has her holding a baby that looks like her, Heather reaches a library, where Vincent bumps into her. So they have a little conversation about how he's helping her reach Claudia because even though he also believes in God, he doesn't want them to be born because he enjoys this life too much. And also tells her they say it with me, people. Is it a joke? Does it have a deeper meaning? I don't know. And it doesn't matter because he gives her a book titled Otherworld Laws and goes away. The book explains that the seal of Metatron has a strong protective and dispelling properties, although its powers are difficult to control. She then continues going around, finding more stuff like a diary of her dad that talks about how he loves the baby he was given by Alessa/Cheryl, the hospital room where Alessa was kept, a book that talks about a Leodese, the red liquid Harry might have used against Bad Sybil, Alessa's bedroom, which is filled with stuff from Alessa and Cheryl and also has the same locked door Harry had to open, the same desk Harry found in the school, a notebook from Kay Gordon who seems to be worried about Alessa's well-being, a letter complaining about how Father Vincent is using the money of the organization for his own benefit, a cassette player where she uses the one she found and is able to listen to Vincent talking with a member of the church about how they have found the Holy Mother, a diary from Claudia that doesn't really have anything new, and a birthday card for Claudia that seems to have been written by Alessa. And of course, she also keeps coming across the same monster she has been seeing throughout her journey, who is moving two pairs of legs and bothering a nurse. Thankfully, after using some tarot cards she picked up, Heather is able to open the door inside Alessa's room, which takes her to another part of the church where she finally comes face to face with Claudia and Vincent, who seem to be fighting over what is the right thing to do, until Claudia stops Vincent and has another heated argument with Heather about why she should birth God. But a dying Vincent interrupts them and tells Heather to use a seal of Metatron to stop her. Claudia then finishes with him, and Heather starts turning weird. But she isn't going to let no baby ruin her teens.
I'd rather go to hell.
However, before she is able to finish with the fetus, Claudia... yeah. Now, Heather only has to do one last thing. She then goes back to Douglas, pranks him, and as the proud daughter of Harry Mason she is, Heather asks Douglas to call her by her real name, which is Cheryl Mason. Since there are different endings... If you start a new extra new game and Heather kills more than 200 enemies in total, receives more than 1000 damage points and forgives the lady in the confessional, then in the last scene we will see how Heather has killed Douglas, hinting that she has become evil. However, if instead of this, Heather obtains the Heather Beam or Sexy Beam and kills 30 monsters with it before reaching her apartment complex, then instead of finding the corpse of her dad, she will find him drinking some tea with an alien. And after explaining to them the events from the mall and all that, her dad decides enough is enough. Silent Hill needs to go.
Oh, Dad, you're the coolest!
Oh yeah, and James is here too. Remember that if you enjoyed this video and you don't want to miss any new uploads, you can leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you in the next one. Bye bye.